Hey, welcome back. I'm Jude, and today we're going to talk about being glued to the news, media, and what is the right balance point for us. Now, especially when there's big crises in the world, we often get super glued to the news, and this really impacts us. Our brain has not evolved in the last many thousands of years. So having all these screens, all this stimulation, being tuned in to all these world events nonstop really does impact us. And I don't feel like I really have to prove this point. I think we all really know. We've all had this experience of just losing ourselves in the media, losing ourselves in the news, and feeling totally just kind of mentally exhausted, physically stressed, anxious, restless, not able to sleep very well. The impact is really clear. So why do we do it? And I think there's two reasons. One is that news is really stimulating. It's a lot more interesting than what's probably happening in our day-to-day lives. And especially really big sensationalist things. So the example that's often used is how everyone slows down and looks at a car crash. It's just human nature that when there's tragedy, when there's catastrophe, we're just drawn to look. This is biologically wired in us. And so the news networks really capitalize on this. So news networks are obviously driven by money, driven by advertising. And so the longer we're glued to them, the more money they make. And what really glues us to them is sensationalist news, is showing catastrophe, showing tragedy. And as a result, we're constantly intaking really intense information. The other reason we get glued to the news is because we want to stay informed, because we care. When there's real tragedy in the world and you can see it, a lot of people feel really guilty to turn away from it, to not be paying attention to it. It's almost like this sense that if I turn away, if I don't look at what's happening in the world, it means I don't care about these people who are suffering. It's almost like our attention is some form of compassion. Now, if somebody's suffering right in front of us, then our attention absolutely is compassion. That for us to be present with them is caring. It's going to help them a lot. As a therapist, this is what I do with clients. When I'm really present with them, when I'm really paying attention to what they're going through, it's really validating for them. It really helps them move through difficult things. But watching on a TV screen or on your phone, these live streamed events of tragedy, that's not helping the people on the other end. Now, I don't want to discount the positive impact that can come from viewing tragedy. A lot of social movements, really important ones, peace movements, human rights movements have come from this collective viewing of tragic things. And so it's not like I'm saying we should turn away or ignore the tragedy happening in the world. But what I'm saying is we have to reevaluate what kind of relationship we want to have with media, with news, with the tragedies of the world. And we want to find a balance point that works for us. So the first and most important approach, I think, is to really step back and look at what is your role in the world? How do you want to positively impact the world or people around you? Because that's really what it's all about. Watching tragedy on a screen is not really helping. But if we do have an opportunity to help people, whether they're the people in the news or not, that is what's really important, is having a positive impact on real people. And so that's really what you have to contemplate. And when you get a sense of what kinds of positive impacts you have on people, and it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could just, again, be present with people, caring for them just through being present with them. That's really meaningful. That's really having an impact. So once you get a sense of what kind of impact you want to have on the world, then you have to look at, is your media intake helping or hurting that? And that's really the formula that I use. If I get caught up in the news and the media and social media and all of these things, it distracts from the ways that I could have a positive impact on you, the viewer, and the personal relationships in my life. And so the impact of staying informed is actually detrimental. I think there's a good middle ground here. Like back in pre-television times, everyone used to just read the newspaper to be informed. So once a day, you had the news concisely and succinctly delivered to you. And you can flip through, see what's been happening in the world lately, read the newspaper in the morning or at whatever time of day you'd like, and then you put it away and go about your day and you're in your life. What's happened now is that our consuming of media is everywhere. Because we're surrounded by screens, it gets pushed into everything. Television, social media, the crisis is everywhere and it feels overwhelming, it feels inescapable. And this is when it really goes too far and becomes unhelpful. This is when I think we really have to reflect and draw some lines for ourselves. You have to think about how informed you want to be. How much time do you really want to spend intaking the news? Do you want to check up on the world happenings once a day, twice a day, once a week? It's up to you based on your lifestyle, your values, your responsibilities, your reactivity, your mental well-being. This is what I'm urging you to do, is decide what makes sense for you when it comes to consuming media, consuming news. And I'll leave off with a bit of Buddhist wisdom. Now, the Buddhists say that the best thing that we can do for others is to awaken ourselves, is to actually focus on our own process, on bettering ourselves. And it's from that place, once we really truly learn how to better ourselves, that we can help others to better themselves or to come to more of a sense of well-being. We have to come to our own sense of well-being. And it's only really then that we can help others come to a sense of well-being. If we're being really reactive and panicky, there's a good chance that that's going to impact others and that even some attempts to help may actually do more harm. So I don't take this wisdom to the extreme. I'm not saying that you can't help others or have a good impact on others if you haven't found your own sense of well-being. That's totally not true. I know lots of amazing therapists who are still challenged with their own problems and still working through them. And that actually allows them to connect deeper with their clients. So it's not that we have to be perfect or find a total sense of well-being before we can help others, but we do have to have that as a priority. We can't just focus on the well-being of others and not our well-being. So again, this is for you to explore. What is the balance point that makes sense for you? If you only focus on the well-being of others, you're going to get burnt out. What you're doing isn't going to be sustainable. So really examining your own well-being is essential to helping others. And then being kind of relentless and doing what you need to do, whether it's cutting off social media, news, taking diets from these things, or just limiting them to smaller amounts in the day. You have to figure out what really works for you. So this is just an invitation to step back, to really look at your life, really look at your media intake, and think about what is going to be sustainable, what's going to be healthy. What do you need to do to care for your own well-being in these times? Okay, that's it for today. Like, comment, subscribe, sign up for the newsletter. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in.